Okay, everybody, let's just try that again, but this time I want a little more sostenuto and draw the sound out. Don't push it out, okay? Here we go, measure 20. Stop. All right, that was great, but even though it's Brahms, can you guys sing it with more of an indie feel? You know, like indie? Let's pick it up at measure 33.
The night sky is changing over, and it's not just all physical. I'm the type who won't get oh so critical. So let's make things physical. I won't treat you like you're oh so typical.
Stop. All right, that was better, but now I feel like we're losing a little of the Brahms. So let's just try it a slightly different way. I want that whole sense of grant them eternal rest, O Lord, but also a sense of I bless the rains down in Africa. You know what I mean? So let's try that at measure 42. Go ahead.
I bless the rains down in Africa. Gonna take some time to do the things we never
Stop. Okay. Can we do it a little gayer, please? Measure 50.
I see a little silhouette of a man. Scaramouche, will you do the fandango?
Okay, great, you guys. Now, can we put this all together? Give me the German grief with the indie thing and the very commercial white people singing about Africa, but with a super gay pirate Viking subtext. Hey, where's everybody going? You can't leave. Rehearsal just started. Come back. We have 4 more hours. Quitters. Wow. People don't commit the way they used to. Today's show is about the joy and benefits of singing with other people. And now to sing an old Slavic folk song about a nurse and her special beans, the Colin McEnroe Glee Club.
Well, we're going to just hold off on that for a second. Where is that echoey place that she's in right now? I don't even know. Yeah, welcome to our show. We've actually, this show, the idea for this show came from one of the guests we have on the show, Lucy Ferris, who's sitting right here, a writer in residence at Trinity College, contacted me a while ago and said, you know, do a show about sort of why people sing in choirs, what people get out of singing, not just in choirs or glee clubs or chorales, any kind of ensemble singing, what the benefit is. And so that's what we've done. And we've actually discovered that there's quite a lot to this. And there's a literature that goes with it and a science that goes with it, and we're going to try to tell you as much about that as we possibly can. We'd also love to hear from you, particularly hear sort of your personal stories. You know, did you join a choir or a chorus or a chorale to get over something or to discover something about yourself? Did you discover something about yourself you didn't even know was there? Give us a call, 860-275-7266. 860-275-7266. As we go along, you may tweet us at WNPR Colin. Greg Hill is our tweet master, and he will be tweeting at you, too. So let me tell you who's here and what we're going to be talking about. Lucy Ferris, I already said. She's the author of many books, including the forthcoming The Map of Honor. She also sings with the City Singers Choir. Also here with us from the City Singers Choir is John Church. Ray Giolito is here with us. He is a soloist, has been a member of the choir at the Universalist Church of West Hartford for 22 years, sings with Concora. And then sitting in the studios of NPR Midtown is Stacey Horn, the writer and author of several books, including, most relevantly for today, Imperfect Harmony, Finding Happiness, Singing with Others. What could be more relevant for today? She's been a member of the Choral Society of Grace Church in New York City for 31 years. And in a little while, we're going to talk to Daniel Levitin. He's kind of the go-to guy for the neurology of music. He's a musician, professor of psychology at McGill University and dean of arts and humanities at KGI. And author of several books, including This Is Your Brain on Music, which is also, once again, sort of a go-to text for the science of what we're going to be talking about. But we're going to be talking about, I think, more than science. And Lucy, since this was all your idea, I'm going to start with you. I mean, I think when you first pitched this to us, you pitched it with that idea that people get different things out of this. I mean, there's a pure joy that comes with singing with other people. But it's really kind of more than that, too, right? People heal in different ways and find different things.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was at a workshop once, sort of in between seasons when I was singing with the Hartford Chorale, and the question came up, why did we sing? And the general consensus is because we're happier after we've sung for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no matter what we were thinking about or anything, we just find ourselves happier. Stephen Colbert, of all people, has taken up singing, and he describes it as yoga for your insides. and it feels like that to me. I mean, sometimes I feel like, the sinuses in my face have expanded, and so therefore my brain is better. But yeah, different people have different sorts of experiences. What the other thing that I find is, like in our group right now, we have somebody who makes T-shirts for a living, and somebody else who's a breast surgeon. I mean, it is something that transcends all those other categories.
And Stacey Horn, I mean, one of the things that's clear from your book is that the happiness that Lucy thinks that she's feeling at the end of an hour of singing it's kind of documentable, right? There are clinical studies that suggest that not only would she be happier at the end of an hour of singing, but she'd be happier at the end of an hour of singing in harmony than she would be after an hour of singing in unison.
Yeah, there's definitely something about harmony. I mean, singing in any form is better, but when you break out into harmony, the best way I can describe it is it's like being jolted back to life, like you've gotten some sort of musical CPR and you wake up in this wonderful place. I mean, there's just something about being surrounded, encircled by all these different voices coming in and out of ever-evolving harmonic combinations. It's a rush. And I did research the science of singing. I mean, because you ask any singer and they'll tell you, this is just not an emotional thing I'm feeling. I'm physically feeling better. If you walk into choir tired, you'll just wake up. You'll walk out feeling more awake and more alive. And as Lucy said, happier.
And John Church, I think in some of the pre-interviews for the show, you said sometimes you arrive at a rehearsal feeling. This is kind of echoing really what Stacey just said. You arrive at a rehearsal feeling one way and leave feeling another. How does that work for you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, going to a rehearsal is my solace. You have the rest of your day, and you're dealing with the realities of life. And when you get to go to a rehearsal, you get to a constant. And coming together and making music all of a sudden, it brings you to that same thing every time. And it's a marvelous feeling.
You know, Ray, you are both a soloist and a choral singer. Is there a difference? I mean, is there a difference between the two experiences for you, rehearsing one kind of performance as opposed to the other?
There is. As a soloist, you are solely responsible for communicating with your audience. As a member of a choir, a chorus, you're interacting with the singers around you, and I look at it all as giving a gift. We all need to give as human beings, and that communication, no matter whether it's a soloist or with a chorus, you're giving of yourself. It's not financial; it's a talent, and you watch people respond. You look at their eyes, and you see how they react to what it is you're giving them, and it really feels good.
You know, Stacey Horn, one of the things that you sort of recount in your book, I mean, this is the story of your experiences in this New York City choir, and it's a very, very good choir. And he just made an interesting point, and I want you to amplify it a little bit. I mean, this being New York City, there are a lot of talented people around. Your choir has a pretty high regard, and as a result, fabulously talented and incredibly well-trained, highly educated, deeply skilled people who are in New York to maybe seek careers in music, or I think you say that, or people who found a career in something else and are now looking for a place to put all of their fabulous musical talent, are in these choirs for nothing. I mean, it's a volunteer thing, right?
Yeah, and people wouldn't be doing it if they weren't getting a tremendous amount out of it. But I wanted to address your point about how good my choir is, and my choir does contain a lot of very, very amazing singers, and I've always been very, very insecure about my voice. And I just have a story I'd like to tell just quickly. I took singing lessons very early on to address my insecurity about my voice. And one of the first things the teacher did, she was the associate conductor of my choir, she played a recording of our choir at a recent performance that I had been in. and I couldn't get over how amazing we sounded. And I said to her, I said, "We sound so great." And she looked at me and she said, "Your voice is in there." And it just really brought home that, maybe I don't have the greatest voice in the world, but it was contributing to that sound, and altogether the aggregate sound, with the people with varying abilities, was still beautiful.
I want to grab a call here. We got a lot of people calling in at 860-275-7266. Seems to be something that people want to talk about. Here's Laura in Norwich. Hi, Laura.
Hi. I wanted to just share my story. I've been in choir since I was in second grade. My mom is a singer, my grandfather, my aunts, uncles. She went to choir practices when she was pregnant with me. And my director for a long time was like a father figure for me. And choir always provided me with a community that I could turn to. And I continued singing throughout high school. And when I went to college, I joined chorale. And I was severely depressed my first year of college. And I attribute chorale to saving my life, that it was really a place for me to go every week, something that was a rock for me.
Stacey Horn, this is almost word for word similar to some of the stories in your book. And specifically, that idea of going to college and being depressed, feeling alone, cut off, and isolated, and then finding a home.
Yeah, I heard that over and over again. In fact, my book begins with a coal mining disaster and how I think 92 people died, and a small group of survivors after the accident, they came up out of the mine and they formed this choral society and started singing. And I remember thinking how weird that was at first, but then I realized they were singing because it helped them manage those feelings. It made them feel better. In fact, this one example I love, I was researching the history of singing and choral societies in the 19th century, and I found this one choral society made this note where a member of their choral society had been on the Titanic when it sank, and he still showed up for a choir rehearsal a week later. And in fact, 2 weeks after that, they went ahead with their performance. But of course they did, because it helped them deal with this terrible thing that had happened. And then I think that helps explain why people often turn to singing after terrible things happen.
Although it's the kind of thing that choir directors will now bring up. Look, the person for the Titanic got to rehearsal. Why can't you get to rehearsal? Lucy, I want to go to something that Stacey was just talking about, the idea of feeling that her voice isn't all that great. That's something that you've talked about too, right?
I have, yes. Yeah, no, I can read music and I can hold a tune. I have no quality to my voice. I know that. I admit it freely. One of the amazing things about singing in a chorus is that our director will tell us all the time, remember, you are one voice. So your challenge is, yes, to sing the best you can, but not to let your voice stand out. You have to listen as much as sing. And that's not a lower bar at all. It's just a different bar. And I find that if I set myself to hearing what the other people in my part are singing and to sing the same way, I mean, you can't imagine, for instance, how hard the word Bethlehem is to say if you're all going to say it the same way with the same kind of E sound. And if you focus on that listening and focus on blending in, you're suddenly not a bad singer anymore. You are, a drop in this little mini ocean of singing, and you're contributing. And I'll never be like Ray. I'll never be a soloist, but I will be a good choir member.
But see, that's the difference that Colin was mentioning before. The difference between a soloist and a member of a chorus is that you have to blend. You cannot stand out because they'll hear it out there.
There are some soloists who don't work well in choirs, because they can't blend.
They should leave.
Yes.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
That whole idea of I've got a couple of places I want to go with this, but that whole idea of saying the words the same way. I'm thinking of when Simon and Garfunkel first started singing together. Supposedly, one of them would watch the other one's mouth to see exactly what position the tongue was in when
Excellent
it made.
idea.
And Stacey, in your book, I mean, for example, Stacey, how do you say the word house?
When you're singing.
When you're singing.
Yeah, I have a section in my book where I talk about John McClay, the director of our choral society, because he every week he sends us out these very precise directions on how to pronounce words, and he sent us a whole paragraph about how to say house.
Yeah, it's the diphthongs that kill you.
Exactly.
But everybody's going to do it the same way. That's sort of the key to this. I mean, everybody's going to do it the same way. I also want to go back to this whole idea about voices not being that great, because I think there might be a lot. By the time we're done with this show, and certainly by the time you're done reading Stacey's book, you feel like you're risking your life if you're not joining some kind of choral group, and you really feel like maybe your neurological health is in danger, your other kinds of health is in danger. You really may be cutting your life short if you don't do something like this. So people are listening, John Church, right now, and maybe some of them are thinking, I think maybe I could do this. Maybe I don't read music all that well. Maybe I can't really sight read it. Maybe my voice isn't that good. How should somebody evaluate themselves? How should somebody decide whether or not they could sing in a group like the one you sing in?
That's a great question. And singers deal with this all the time. What I was listening to with our comments just now is that we're talking about how we blend in, what our role is in the choir and so forth. But what's most hard about this, I think, is that it's not about me. It's about what we do in the performance. It's about the ultimate product that we have to provide for our audience. And Ray, we were talking when we just came in about that electric energy that we create with our audience, and it's that magic that we're working for. So in a way, I think what has to happen is this leap of faith. You have a leap of faith in the people you're with, a leap of faith in your director, and you are just going to become part of a bigger thing than you.
And there's also different choruses for different people. Mm-hmm. There are so many different levels of this. There's Concora, and then there
which
are
is
many
a high level.
A high level. There are many church choirs. When I lived in New York City, I sang with a group that sang madrigals in somebody's kitchen every Saturday morning, and basically sang for themselves. They weren't interested in having an audience. They wanted to sit and sing madrigals to each other. So there is always a chorus for you, regardless of what kind of voice you have. It just may take some time to find what the right one is.
I've sung next to people in my tenor section that have developed a skill of singing the note a millisecond after me because they can't read music, and they'll admit to me that they can't read music, but it sounds great because that millisecond, they have this technique. They hear it and they produce it, and it works and it blends. It's an amazing thing to see that or to hear it.
Right.
Although Stacey Horn, your choir director, kind of broke people of that habit, right, by breaking them up into quartets.
Yeah, right. That's the way to do that.
Yeah, that was terrifying, but now it's my favorite thing. And for people who don't know what that is, often when you go, you hear a choir, people or belong to a choir, people are singing in sections. So all the sopranos are singing together, all the altos are singing together. But John McClay broke us up into quartets, so I'm not singing in a sea of sopranos anymore. I'll have a tenor on one side or a bass on one side. And the result of that is you really, really have to know your part. But also, we were talking about blending before. You really, really have to blend. If you don't listen and sing with people, it just comes out badly. Everyone knows it, and they know exactly which person is causing it to sound badly. Mm-hmm. But it feels so much better when you do it right, that you have this reason to listen and blend.
I have this theory. I'm about to voice my own opinion about this, although I'm the least experienced or least prolific singer in this whole conversation. But I do sing occasionally with groups, and I am singing on Saturday night at the Little Theater in Manchester. Diane Mauer's doing, if I don't plug this, I'll get in a lot of trouble. So Diane Mauer's doing, she's a jazz singer doing a night of Bonnie Raitt. I'll be doing one song with her, and I'll be the MC that night. But whenever I do manage to get my act together and get to rehearsals and do this, one of the things that I'm really struck by is that it's certainly the case, just as Stacey Horn is saying right now, that any kind of choral singing or harmonic singing is about listening. But really, all singing is about listening. I mean, I think we think of singing as making a noise come out of our mouths, and how good a noise is it going to be. And I think a lot of the time that's like 45% of it. I mean, all singing is listening, because unless you're singing a cappella solo, you absolutely have to listen to everything else that's happening around you. You have to, listen. You better, if you're a jazz singer, you really better be listening to the drums. I mean, it's more listening than anything else.
It is, and that creates the ensemble. You know, that's what makes it work.
There's a group I've sung with called Village Harmony that every now and then they'll let people read music off a score. But for the most part, the idea is that you learn everything orally, which means on the one hand they admit people who can't read music. And on the other hand, people who can read music initially freak out because they don't trust their sense of hearing, pitches and hearing a melody and then repeating it back. But the more you do it, the more comfortable you become with it because you're tuning your ear.
I'm getting the sense you're a very promiscuous group joiner. You've mentioned like 6 different
I know.
ensembles already that you've sung with. And that's maybe a thing worth mentioning, Stacey, is just the amount of variety that there is out there. Because of just reading your work, I wound up, in fact, we used something in the intro by Choir, which is a group of people who are, once again, in a choral setting. I don't know, you could probably describe it better than I can, but maybe as you do that, just talk about how many different kinds of vocal ensembles there seem to be out there.
Well, Lucy started to talk about that. You can find the choir for you, both in skills and ability, and also the kind of music you sing. Like I sing in a community choir, and we sing sacred music like the Bach B minor Mass or Mozart's Requiem. But you can find groups that are singing gospel music, rock music, folk music. There's something that I'm not very familiar with, but shape music singing.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
Shape note, thank you. I mean, you can find whatever, music speaks to you. You can find a group of people singing that music.
Let me grab a call here from, we've got some various Carols up on the board, I think, appropriately, I suppose. Oh, this is Carl. Excuse me. We have a Carol and a Carl. Here's Carl from Stanford. Hi, Carl.
Hi, how are you?
Just fine.
This is a great topic. Boy, is it interesting. I just wanted everything that I just was hearing was just wonderful. If you wanted to have a little bit of my experience with this choral singing, I started off singing when I was a kid, like 8 years old, in a church choir, and then life goes on. I was living over in the UK. We came back in 2001. September 11th happened. And I just found myself in my local church. And when I got back into church like that, I just sort of naturally went to the choir. And since then, I've been singing, and there was somebody there at church, the choir director said, "You really ought to join one of these other choirs, these other choruses." And, well, long story short, now I sing with the Greenwich Choral Society and also 2 different choirs at Christ Church, Greenwich. And the sensation of singing is so wonderful.
But Carl,
it's almost like a drug. I'm telling you, you get your head buzzing, and then after a rehearsal, it's like I go in there feeling, really angry or depressed or something. I come out, and I'm just I'm gliding, man. I'm so happy. And
Daniel Levitin will tell you which drugs you're making in your brain. But Carl, I just want to ask you too. Do you feel as though the singing with groups was a response to whatever grief or anxiety that you felt after September 11th?
That's a good question. I don't know, but I certainly was reaching out to other people at that point, and I wanted human contact to try to understand something that was not understandable, and that's what drew me back into a little church up the way here.
All right.
And now I'm singing in a great big, almost cathedral, and a cappella piece. We just finished the St. Nicholas Mass by Britain over the weekend. 3 performances. They were completely sold out. And wow, was that ever a trip.
I bet. Carl, thanks so much for your call. I'm going to grab one more call from Carol, then we got to take a break here. We got lots of ground to cover here today. Here's Carol calling from Hartford. Hi, Carol.
Hi, how are you?
Just fine.
I sing with the Manchester Sacred Song Circle, and it's a fabulous experience. Before that, I used to sing karaoke, and I noticed in karaoke, people brought a lot of anger and heartbreak. It was usually after a breakup that people would sing karaoke. And Sacred Song is fabulous. You can come in any mood, and you always leave happy.
You see Sacred Song, and I know you emailed me about this, but I don't have kind of a sense of this. So this is sort of sacred singing that isn't necessarily Judeo-Christian? It's something else?
No, it's mostly pagan songs that worship the earth, Mother Earth.
Sounds great. Sounds fabulous.
Yeah.
All right.
It is.
Thanks for your call. And before we go to break here, just because I'll forget it otherwise, Stacey Horn, she just said something about karaoke, which I think really just as easily applies to choral singing as well. Which is, she says after a breakup, people go and sing karaoke, which I probably don't want to hear them do. But this is, even in your own life, I think you read about this that after a romantic disappointment, choral singing is the best thing.
Yeah, I got into choir singing when I was in my 20s because I had hit this really terrible patch in my life. Everything was going wrong, divorce, job, everything. And the things that I was doing to feel better was actually just very destructive and making me feel worse. And in fact, I don't want to mention what I was doing. But I knew I had to find something healthier. And that's how I got the idea of joining a choir.
Our number, if you want to call in with your choir stories or your chorale stories, 860-275-7266, or your Glee Club stories, 860-275-7266. And we're going to be talking to Daniel Levitin right after this. I believe this is the Hebrides Lullaby, sung by the City Singers of Hartford, two of whom are here with us. All right, we're talking about the value, the benefits of singing in a group, singing with other people. And we've got here in studio 3 people who sing with groups in the Hartford area. We have in the studios in New York, Stacey Horn, who's the author of Imperfect Harmony, Finding Happiness, Singing with Others. Joining us now, as I said, sort of the go-to guy about the science and neurology of all this stuff, Daniel Levitin. He's a musician, professor of psychology at McGill University. He's the author of several books, including, once again, the quintessential text on all this. This is Your Brain on Music. And the forthcoming The Organized Mind, Thinking Straight in the Age of Information Overload. That's due out in August of next year. But most relevantly here, once again, this is Your Brain on Music. So, Daniel Levitin, we've been hearing from all the people in the studio and from Stacey about these feelings that they have when they sing with other people. They have feelings of exhilaration. A bad mood is reversed into a good mood. We're also just hearing and reading in Stacey's book about actual measurable health benefits from singing with other people. Can you sort of walk us through what's one of the things that's happened is that people like you have been really able to study the physiology and neurology of people's reactions to music and reactions to participating in music. Are there striking things you've learned in particular about this whole business of singing and harmonizing with other people?
Well, there are. I think we can begin at a cognitive level before we get to the neural stuff, maybe because it's an easier way to get into it. Singing together as opposed to singing alone by yourself requires 3 things that are really essential. One is anticipation. You have to anticipate what the other person or people are going to do. You have to then have synchronization so that your contribution meshes with theirs, either simultaneously or filling in the gaps in between when they're singing, as we see in call and response songs. And in addition to anticipation and synchronization, singing together requires cooperation. All of this means that you have to come outside yourself, and you cannot be self-centered or self-involved and make this work. And that leads to a whole bunch of positive benefits. Every time we get out of ourselves and interact with other human beings in a cooperative project, evolution has given us a series of neurochemical rewards for doing that because it's what made societies possible.
It does seem, and this, I think what you're saying would kind of confirm it. I think most of the people participating here would say that on those occasions where they might have arrived at a rehearsal or a performance, but probably most especially at a rehearsal, with perhaps an impure heart in that regard, that maybe they were thinking more about themselves and how they were going to sound and less about cooperation, that somehow or the experience of doing it pulled them into a state of cooperation. And is what you're saying that neurochemically, in some ways, the things that you have to do just to function in this environment are going to, in some ways, pull you into that state of collaboration?
That's absolutely right, Colin. So part of the story has to do with the chemical oxytocin. This is a neurohormone that causes us to feel bonded and connected to one another. And oxytocin is released when we have oxytocin is released when we sing together, and it's also released when we engage in sexual encounters as a way of making us feel connected to one another.
It's also called the cuddling hormone. That was the other way that we could have described it.
Yes.
So you've got that. And maybe we could just say a little bit more about, so since we're at the neurochemical level. I mean, obviously the other thing that's happening, I would imagine, since everybody's talking here today about you can arrive feeling down and leave feeling good, I assume dopamine's playing some kind of role in all this.
You're absolutely right, Colin. So dopamine is an interesting hormone because it functions differently in the different parts of the brain in which it is distributed. So in the frontal lobes, it helps us to pay attention and to concentrate on things. In the limbic system, it gives us the subjective feeling of pleasure and reward. It's that warm feeling you get when you're doing something enjoyable and that you like. And it's that latter limbic system contribution in structures known as the nucleus accumbens and the amygdala that causes you to want to repeat that activity, whether it's eating chocolate or having sex or singing.
Now, the other thing, obviously we're going to have to sort of condense years and years and years of research and volumes of research into 5 or 6 minutes of explanation. But it might be worth just talking a little bit about what you can see on MRIs and other kinds of scans. I mean, you can see, for example, a pitch, right? A specific pitch shows up as a specific thing in the brain.
In theory, it does. We haven't yet managed to do that. We don't have the resolution to do it with MRI, but we do it in animals with what are called single-cell recordings. We can put electrodes in the animal brain, and we absolutely see a single pitch.
And so, given that, given whatever the limitations are too, are there things that you can say in terms of brain activity about what I mean, neurochemically? All right, we can talk about oxytocin, we can talk about dopamine, but this whole business of collaborating, harmonizing, getting your own pitch, listening to somebody else's pitches, maybe listening to 3 other pitches that you're blending into a quartet sound. Are there things that are going on kind of structurally in the brain that we can talk about?
Yeah, so we have learned quite a bit about this in the last 20 years or so. In the auditory cortex, just actually above your ears and in an inch or two, as you mentioned, there are circuits that are tuned to specific pitches. So a C and a C sharp are going to activate distinctly different parts of primary auditory cortex. And then there's another part of the brain that registers the timbre. Is it a male voice, a female voice? Is it a musical instrument? And if so, which one? There's another part of the brain that registers how loud the sound is, and another part of the auditory cortex registering how long it lasts. So all of these different components of the brain are working together to deliver to you the perception of say a half-note C sharp. And your frontal lobe is getting information from the auditory cortex about this so that it can try to predict what's going to happen next. And that's what makes singing together possible, and dancing and clapping together, for that matter.
Well, no, that's sort of, and yeah, obviously, once again, we haven't even gotten into that, even with the panelists here, so much about some of the real kind of rhythmic issues, although they're addressed very interestingly in Stacy's book. But Daniel Levitin, as we think about all that, of course, what everybody really wants to hear is, oh, well, if you do this, you will ward off, you will at least decrease the possibility that you're going to get a stroke, that you're going to get various kinds of vascular dementia, that you're going to. I mean, is any of that really provable? Can we say for sure that if you join a choir, you will in fact statistically reduce your chances of getting certain ailments, or increase your chances of getting them a lot later in life?
That's a great question, and I think the answer is yes. We can say some of these things with certainty. So you talk about the vascular issues. Singing, of course, requires airflow, and it's a good exercise that in some respects resembles certain yoga practices. You're breathing deeply, you're breathing in synchrony, you're mouthing certain words. This gets the air going, which oxygenates the blood. But more to the point about disease prevention, we've now seen evidence that playing music, whether singing or playing an instrument, playing music increases levels of immunoglobulin A, that is IgA, which is responsible for protecting us from infections of the mucosal system, colds and sinus infections. And it also increases the production of the body's natural killer cells and T cells, which help to fight infection. So we don't exactly know what the mechanism is that music allows the production of these important chemicals, but it seems as though part of it is that it improves our mood and reduces the stress hormone cortisol, which in turn leads the body to produce T cells and K cells.
Stacey Horn, you're listening to all this, and you relied on Daniel Levitin's book. This is Your Brain on Music for some of the research that you did for your book, Imperfect Harmony. And just give us kind of your sense of, as a singer, digesting not only Daniel Levitin's work, but a lot of other research on this. Where did you come out on this? I mean, if you were going to talk to somebody who was wondering whether there were any neurological or physiological benefits from singing, what would you say to them?
Well, first of all, I just want to say I had to struggle not to laugh when he was talking about, and I can't pronounce it, immunoglobulin.
Yes.
Because the ironic thing about that is one of my favorite pieces of music to sing are requiems, which are songs about death, masses for the dead. But requiems make me feel the best of all. And one of the studies that found that singers had an increase in that, SIGA, they were singing Mozart's Requiem at the time.
Well, listen.
So even singing
right.
about
There's
death makes you feel better.
Story there that I know that Stacey knows, and that has to do with prolactin. Often when we hear or sing sad songs, prolactin, which is a tranquilizing and soothing hormone, is released. It's the same hormone that's released when mothers are nursing their infants.
Well, the research on this is all fascinating, and I do recommend both of these books to anybody who's interested in the conversation that we're having. And I assume the people who aren't interested aren't listening anymore. So that's all of you. Read these two books. We're so grateful to have Daniel Levitin on today. I mean, really, he is kind of the go-to guy for all of this. We do have to take a quick break here. We're going to go out with Ubi Caritas by the Choral Society of Grace Church in NYC, featuring Stacey Horn. I don't think you can hear her specifically, though.
If singing with others is so good for your brain, then why are there so many dumb characters on Glee? Today's show was produced by Betsy Kaplan and me. Our interns are Jackie Lauper and Tess Aronson. Greg Hill tweets for us at WNPR Colin, and the part of Bill Curry was played by Rebel Wilson. For articles, links, photos, and videos of the Faith Middleton Show staff singing Don't Stop Believin', visit our website, WNPR.org. On tomorrow's show, we're live from our pop-up studio at 231 Trumbull Street in Hartford, talking about what happened to Cindy Lou Who and Tiny Tim in their later years. And now, back to Colin.
Yeah, that whole show will be based, at least, well, prominently based on Christmas on the Rocks, a show that's being done at Theater Works right now, in which a group of playwrights, distinguished playwrights, anticipate the later lives of classic Christmas characters. I'll tell you more about that tomorrow. We got a lot of ground to cover here. We got a lot of people waiting to talk who've been called up. Let me kind of reintroduce you to what we're talking about, which is the benefit of singing with other people. With me in studio, Ray Giolito. He is a soloist and a member of the choir of the Universalist Church of Hartford for 22 years. Also sings with Concora. John Church sings bass in the City Singers Choir. And Lucy Ferris, writer in residence at Trinity College, also sings with the City Singers Choir, and apparently about 18 other singing groups as well. So, as somebody pointed out, I was allowed to plug my appearance at the Little Theater of Manchester on Saturday night with Diane Maurer singing Bonnie Raitt at 7:30. So you guys get to do yours too. What have you got, Ray?
Well, Sunday at 9 and 11, our church, Universal Church of West Hartford, is celebrating Benjamin Britten at our holiday concert. And then at 4 on Saturday and 4 on Sunday, Concora does its annual Christmas concert at Westminster Presbyterian Church in West Hartford.
All right.
Always a sellout.
All right. And John Church, you can speak for City Singers Choir.
Well, we have 2 concerts coming up, one this coming Saturday and the following Saturday at First Church in West Hartford. We're doing Glad Tidings. We've had 1 concert that was wonderfully received in Tolland, and we hope people will show up for our 4 o'clock programs in West Hartford.
Right.
It's a voluntary offering, we should say.
A voluntary offering. All right. And so, Stacey Horn, you guys have already done your big December concert, right?
Yeah, so I guess in the spring we'll be doing Mozart's Requiem.
All right. So we have, once again, a lot of things to talk about. I want to grab some calls here. But before we do that, Stacey Horn, I want to quickly just, particularly because of some things that everybody was just saying here, and I was thinking about Ray and the Universalist Church doing Benjamin Britten. And one of the things you talk about in your book is, you sing religious music in a choir where not everybody is religious. On the other hand, you have to focus on these words. You have to learn how to say these words perfectly, and you have to have a relationship to these words, too. Can you say a little bit about that, about how people kind of reconcile as they sing, particularly in choirs that tackle sacred music, their own not necessarily sacred feelings?
Yeah, the Choral Society of Grace Church is a community choir, so you don't have to be a member of the church to belong, and I'm agnostic, for instance. So, it was weird for me at first to week after week after week sing about the glories of God. But that weirdness didn't last very long, and I think it's because I may be, for instance, unsure about the existence of God, but Bach, for instance, wasn't. And when I sing his music, I feel his faith and I feel his spirit, and it just feels glorious. And the way I like to explain it is when you sing as opposed to listen to a great piece of music, you become that great piece of music. Because the voice is an instrument, just like any other instrument, but it's this very personal instrument. So when you sing, you're channeling that great work of art through your body, literally, and you're feeling what the composer felt. So when I sing, for instance, Randall Thompson's song, Ye Shall Have a Song, which takes a line from the Bible, Ye shall have a song and gladness of heart. I feel gladness of heart when I sing it.
I want to grab a few calls here. And we've said so many exalted things about singing. We should at least find at least one dissonant tone in all of this. Here's David from Woodbury. Hi, David. Are you there? Oh,
was dissonant.
I was looking forward. I was looking forward to his call. It said that he had an opposite reaction to singing. All right, let's grab a call from Robin in West Hartford, because I think a lot of people who might be sitting there once again thinking, "Wow, this sounds really good," and it sounds like I'm actually jeopardizing my health by not joining one of these groups. So I should do it, but I don't know how good I am. And first of all, Robin, tell us your story.
Hi, I am a member of the West Hartford Women's Chorale in West Hartford, Connecticut. And I will not be a dissonant voice. I will go along with your chorale of voices there in the studio. So I have had a wonderful experience, and I just wanted to make 2 points. One is that you've had some people there that are members of the Hartford Chorale that are auditioned chorales, and people may be very intimidated by going through that audition process. West Hartford Women's Chorale and many others like it are non-audition. And so it's very easy to just come and join and try it out, see how you like it. We are, since you all plugged your events, I'll plug mine as well. We're having our concert at King Philip Middle School in West Hartford on Friday night at 7:30. Love for everybody to join us. And we're also having open rehearsals in January if anyone's interested in joining. And the last thing I'll say is that last year we had our concert on the night of the Sandy Hook shootings. And it was very intense, and we sort of I'm on the board of directors of the chorale, and we all got on the phone with each other like, oh my God, what should we do? And we decided to go ahead with the concert, and it was really the right thing to do, because it was what, as your caller talking about 9/11 mentioned, it's what everybody needed, that opportunity to sort of come together, and the music was very healing at a very terrible time.
I think this is worth pausing over. That first of all, one of the things that I noticed here in Connecticut a year ago, almost exactly a year ago after Sandy Hook, was the number of musical responses to it. That seems to be, I think we're almost kind of wired that way to one of the ways that we process almost unimaginable grief or tragedy is music.
Yeah, there was, I was mentioning during the break that on 9/11, I think it was that evening, I got a call or an email, as did a couple hundred other people, saying if you know the Mozart Requiem and you have a score,
Right.
be at this place on Wednesday. And we were at whatever place that was on Wednesday, and there was an orchestra that was there at that place on Wednesday and a conductor. And on Friday, we gave a concert at Storrs. And I still, even talking about it, gives me kind of the shivers, because technically it was a fundraiser for to help the families of the victims of 9/11. But what it really was healing for everyone. And it was probably, I felt so humbled by the music, and it was such an honor to be able to do that. It was the single most intense musical experience of my life.
Can I just say,
Go ahead.
I have a great quote from Leonard Bernstein, which applies to this, and he said it after the JFK assassination, when he also went ahead with a performance, and he said, "This will be our reply to violence, to make music more intensely, more beautifully, more devotedly than ever before."
I'm going to grab a call here from Janice in Griswold. Hi, Janice.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Thanks for taking my call.
No problem.
It's been wonderful listening to find out that I'm not the only person who is not necessarily a professional musician, but who just has loved my time in the choir. I sing with the Norwich Diocesan Choir in the Catholic Diocese of Norwich, Connecticut, and I've been with them for close to 25 years now. Walked in, didn't know how to read music, but just liked singing. And over the course of my years with them, what I've found is there's been a sort of curious harmonic convergence between the music that we've sung and various things going on in my life. I can remember the first time we sang Messiah, that I sang Messiah with the choir. I was a few months pregnant with our child, our first daughter, after having suffered 2 miscarriages, and singing "For unto us a child is born" was really sort of an expression of hope for me. I remember singing the Fare Requiem, which is one of my absolute favorite pieces of music, after my father passed away, and feeling, sort of dedicating in my own heart my song to him, because he had been a musician. And it's interesting, too, hearing about the responses to 9/11. Our choir put together a performance of the John Rutter Requiem, which is a much more contemporary setting of part of the Requiem Mass, but also part of the Anglican Book of Common Prayer for the Dead. And at the same time that we were singing this, and it was a concert, I think it was a year after 9/11, but at the time we were doing this performance, I was waiting for the results of a biopsy to find out whether I had breast cancer. And there's one really haunting, soulful, kind of almost gospel-inflected movement from that piece. It's a setting of "Out of the depths I call unto thee, O Lord." And that really, I can't really express in words what it felt like singing that piece of music and really feeling like I was sort of in the dark night of the soul and wondering what was going to happen. And it's just been it's been wonderful to find that composers through the ages, and that other people, other singers in this day and age, and instrumentalists, can get caught up in a feeling that says something, speaks to something that's very deep within your own soul. Can I plug our upcoming event?
In 10 seconds, you can do it in 10 seconds.
I can do it. It's Lessons in Carols, our annual Lessons in Carols at St. Patrick's Cathedral in Norwich, Connecticut, on Sunday, December 22nd. Music starts at 7 o'clock. It's bell choirs, Norwich Diocesan Choir, and children's choirs, and lots of carol sing-alongs, and beautiful candlelight version of Silent Night, so please come and enjoy.
All right, Janice, thanks for a great call, too. That you kind of summed up everything we wanted to do with this show. All I've got time to do is thank Lucy Ferris, Ray Giolito, John Church, Stacey Horn, Daniel Levitin. Janice, you should read Stacey Horn's book, Imperfect Harmony, Finding Happiness Singing with Others. Every chapter is a piece of music, and there's a lot of talk about that whole life-overlapping part. And we'll be back tomorrow, live from downtown Hartford. Meanwhile, join one of these groups. Most people sing better than they think they do. There are notable exceptions, but most people sing a little bit better than they assume they sing.
I'm Kyone Wolf. This next song is Don't Stop Believin' by Alpaca Pella. Hit it, alpacas!